Hey guys, today I decided that I'm going to do a video on probably one of the most popular spiders that you can find at a pet store, the Mexican red knee. So I'm going to do a little bit of care info for those. Mexican red knee obviously comes from Mexico, so it's from more of a desert climate. So your kind of setup should reflect that. They like a little bit warmer temperatures. And for these species, they are terrestrial, so you don't need to give them a lot of room like up and down. But I recommend for like the width of the tank that you're keeping them in, make it about 3 to 4 times their leg span. Setup for this tank is actually really easy. They don't really need too much. What I recommend is to give them a hide and then a water dish. So for the water dish though, make sure that you give them something kind of flat because otherwise your tarantula could drown if you give them like a deep bowl. And for the hide, honestly, you don't even need anything fancy. I know you can go to the pet store and they'll sell you a whole bunch of rocks and like logs and stuff like that that you can put in your tarantula's terrarium as a hide. And that's totally cool if you want to do that route. That's awesome. But I opt for stuff a little bit more simple and like budget friendly, I guess, because just because. And so what I like to do in their hides is I actually take like a red Solo cup and I bury it like halfway in, so it's kind of like, I'll show you my setup after, but so it's kind of peeking out so they can like crawl in there and use that as a hide, and it works just as well as like buying one from the store. If you're trying to purchase a tarantula on a budget, that's a really good way to add a hide in there for them. So this type of tarantula, you don't really need to worry about the humidity too much. And like they do like warmer temperatures, but mine has actually tended, which is kind of weird, to thrive from natural sunlight. So I actually keep my tarantula by the window, and they say that you should keep it around 24 to 27 degrees Celsius. I'm sorry, Americans, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but keeping them close to a window, and I keep them in like a warm room, like I keep them in my laundry room because it's a little bit warmer, and they tend to do like just fine in that kind of an environment. And then, like I said, you don't need to worry about humidity too much because they are from the desert, so they're not going to need like a ton of humidity. What I do is I make it rain. So when I'm giving them water, when I give my tarantula water, what I do is I overflow the bowl because I kind of have the bowl like up on a little mound of dirt. So it's not dirt, it's substrate. But I tend to just like overflow the bowl so that the water kind of trickles down, and that tends to be enough humidity for this tarantula. They don't need very much. I said that I keep this tarantula by the window. That is definitely not how I would keep most tarantulas. But this species in particular actually does tend to thrive if you put them in, like, you give them some natural sunlight. They really like it, and apparently they are one of the only species of tarantula that will bask in the sunlight. So that's pretty cool. Mine tends to love the sunlight. So for my grown tarantulas, I mean, I know that there's always this debate going on in the tarantula community. How many times do you feed your tarantula a week? And honestly, I feed mine about 5 or so crickets every other week, and they seem to do just fine. I've tried, doing it like a few once a week, 5 or 6 every other week. They seem to be just fine as long as they have sufficient water. They should be okay. I've tried to feed mine like roaches and stuff as a treat, and she just doesn't seem to go for it. She just really doesn't want to eat them. So this is just kind of like my little, I guess, piece of fun fact about my tarantula, and just a little bit of information about the Mexican red knee in general. They're really popular. They're really great beginner tarantulas because they don't require lots of humidity. They don't require anything too special. They're not too fancy. They're not too picky. As well, they generally are quite docile. So if you're wanting to handle your tarantula, which again, which I don't recommend, spiders don't want to be handled, and at the end of the day, the more you handle your spider, they're not like a dog or a cat or a guinea pig where the more you handle them, the more they get used to it. Spiders are spiders, and if you try and handle them, they won't really get used to it. They don't really like it, so I don't super recommend it. But they are known to be more docile, so if you do want to handle your tarantula, this is definitely one of the breeds that people recommend. And I just kind of wanted to throw out maybe like a word of caution as well. I got my Mexican red knee in kind of hopes that it was going to be very docile, just kind of like what you read on the internet, and mine is actually pretty timid and skittish. So I don't know if this must not be like a common thing, but it can happen. So just kind of read your tarantula and kind of get to know your tarantula before going in and sticking your hand in there and picking it up and grabbing it, because you could end up with kind of like, I call her like the weird one, because you know, you read online, oh, they're so docile, they're so tame, you can pick them up in your hand, and mine you really probably don't want to, because she's really gonna flick those hairs at you. So just kind of get to know your tarantula, read your tarantula, learn your tarantula's warning signals. Aside from that, this is an awesome species to kind of begin learning about tarantulas with. They are really, really easy to take care of. They're awesome. I love them. And now I guess I'll show you a little clip of mine. Alright guys, so here is Miss Muffet, my Mexican red knee. Ooh, you can see her fangs.